Local police moved into position. They had been watching this place for months. They knew something was wrong, but what they found when they finally breached the door was beyond their worst nightmares. This was not just a house, it was a command center. Inside, agents found a staggering amount of contraband. Officers then searched his home and found guns, more than a pound of methamphetamine, 1,000 fentanyl pills, as well as ingredients in a pill press that can make thousands of pills an hour. We are talking about roughly 25 kilograms of suspected fentanyl powder and more than 90,000 fentanyl pills. That is enough poison to wipe out a stadium full of people. But here's the catch. It wasn't just the drugs that made the agents sweat, it was the guns. Scattered throughout the property were 24 firearms. These were not just old pistols for protection. The inventory included assault-style rifles and high-capacity weapons designed for one thing: sustained combat. It was a weapons factory in all but name, a hub used to arm a transnational criminal organization that had set up shop right in the middle of American suburbia. And get this raid was just one part of a massive sweep across western Washington, from Linwood to Sandwich. Law enforcement hit 12 different locations simultaneously. They arrested 10 people, including 25-year-old Luis Humberto Llamos Guzman and 44-year-old Eduardo Vilveño Celo. These guys weren't low-level street dealers. They were key players in a conspiracy that linked narcotics, firearms, and organized crime across multiple counties. The scary part is how normal it all looked from the outside. One suspect, 30-year-old Jose Isabel Sandoval Zuniga, was caught driving his car like any other commuter. But inside his vehicle, police found 1.6 kilograms of fentanyl. What started as a traffic stop ended with all of these guns and prescription pills off the streets. This is what police found after randomly running the plates on a car parked outside a bar. The search of his home revealed even more drugs and a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol. It was a stark reminder that this network was mobile, armed, and operating in plain sight. Authorities called this Operation Take Back America. It sounds like a movie title, but the stakes were very real. The goal was to dismantle a cartel network that had embedded itself deep within U.S. communities. They recovered $40,000 in cash, which might sound like a lot, but in the world of cartel finance, that is just pocket change. The real value was in the hardware and the drugs. Basically, this operation revealed a terrifying truth. The cartels are not just at the border, they are here. They are trafficking firearms alongside heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine, and they're doing it with an efficiency that rivals major corporations. They have supply chains, logistics managers, and enforcers, and now they have stockpiles of weapons sitting in American neighborhoods, ready to be used or shipped south to fuel the violence in Mexico. But finding the stash was only the beginning of the story. The investigation uncovered that these weapons were likely destined for a much darker purpose than just protecting a drug house. They're trying to figure out exactly what this person or this organization was doing with the weapons. They asked if these were being sold to gangs or somebody else, if this was terror-related. All of that is still under investigation. At this point, they're not certain. The specific types of rifles found suggest they were being prepped for conflict. This discovery in Washington was a wake-up call. It showed that the flow of illegal goods isn't a one-way street. Drugs come north, but guns go south, and the people facilitating this trade are often living right next door. The authorities had to use every tool in their box. SWAT teams from Seattle and Snohomish County worked alongside specialized units from the Washington State Patrol. Even the IRS got involved to track the money. It was a total team effort to take down a beast that had grown too big to ignore. As the dust settled in Washington, investigators realized this wasn't an isolated incident. The trail of guns didn't just end in the Pacific Northwest. It stretched all the way to the other side of the country, revealing a pipeline of steel and fire that nobody saw coming. The weapons found in Washington were just the tip of the iceberg, the machine gun maker. While agents were counting rifles in Washington, another drama was unfolding on the streets of New York City. It turns out the demand for illegal firepower is so high that traffickers are building specialized pipelines to move guns across the country. And one of these pipelines led straight to a man named David Morris. On May 9, 2025, federal and city authorities announced the arrest of 31-year-old Morris. They accused him of moving 47 firearms and massive amounts of ammunition from Georgia all the way up to Lower Manhattan. But here is the deal. He wasn't just selling handguns to street thugs. He was boasting about something much more dangerous.
As you can see, the weapons are of all makes and calibers and models, and there's over 1,000. This is a big stash, you may kind of say. That's beyond, just beyond comprehension.
During a weeks-long undercover sting, Morris allegedly sold 17 guns to officers who were posing as buyers. He met them near the waterfront in Lower Manhattan, acting like he was just making a delivery. But in his conversations, he dropped a bombshell. He claimed he had access to machine gun conversion kits. For those who don't know, these are small devices, sometimes called switches, that can turn a regular semi-automatic pistol into a fully automatic machine gun. With one of these tiny pieces of metal or plastic, a handgun can empty an entire magazine in the blink of an eye. It turns a defensive weapon into a tool for a massacre. And Morris said he had been in the gun trade for nearly a decade. The crazy part is the logistics. Morris allegedly transported these weapons from Georgia, driving them up the East Coast. This route is often called the Iron Pipeline. It is a known corridor where guns from states with looser laws travel to states with stricter ones. But usually it is small-time crooks. Morris was moving volume. When authorities finally took him down, they displayed over 200 high-powered firearms seized in Georgia as part of the broader investigation. The table was covered in steel. There were assault rifles, squad automatic weapons, and even a .50 caliber machine gun. Imagine that, a .50 caliber machine gun, the kind used to take out vehicles just sitting in a stash house waiting for a buyer. The total value of the cash seized was over $250,000. Police raided that home Tuesday and says the cash was behind this wall in the attic, packed in orange Home Depot buckets, $150,000 in each bucket. A loaded Tech-9 firearm is also taken from the home, but the cost to public safety would have been immeasurable. Investigators say this case exposes a growing stream of illegal weapons that flows into major cities and then often trickles down to the cartels. See, the cartels love American guns. They use the profits from selling methamphetamine and fentanyl to buy them. They rely on people like Morris or networks of straw purchasers to buy guns legally in the U.S. and then smuggle them. Once those guns cross the border, they're often modified for combat. Morris didn't just stick to guns, though. He was also allegedly dabbling in cocaine. On April 18th, he reportedly handed a sample of coke to an undercover officer. It was a classic case of diversifying the portfolio. Drugs and guns go together like peanut butter and jelly in the underworld. Federal agents explained that this case was part of an ongoing effort to shut down these channels before the weapons reached the streets. They arrested 14 other people in connection with the ring. 9 of them were in the country illegally, while the rest were U.S. citizens. It shows that this is a transnational problem that relies on help from both sides of the law. Morris is now facing serious time. Unlicensed dealing of firearms, firearms trafficking, and using a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking. That last one carries a mandatory minimum of 5 years and could put him away for life. But while the FBI was busy shutting down the Georgia to New York pipeline, an even bigger shipment was trying to sneak through the front door of the country. Down in Texas, a routine inspection was about to turn into a historic seizure. The family business. At the Laredo border crossing in Texas, thousands of trucks pass through every single day. It is a river of commerce. But on one particular day, Customs and Border Protection officers noticed something off about 2 tractor-trailers attempting to cross the bridge. It looked like a normal shipment. The paperwork seemed fine. The drivers, 41-year-old Alo Ramirez Cortez and his son, Edgar Ramirez Diaz, looked legitimate. One was a lawful permanent resident, the other a U.S. citizen. They were the perfect decoys. But the agents had a hunch, or maybe a scanner picked up an anomaly. They pulled the rigs over for a secondary inspection. What they found inside the trailers was an engineering masterpiece of deception. The walls of the trailers had been modified. There were secret compartments built into the frame, hidden so well that you could tap on them and hear nothing but solid wood. But when they pried them open, the agents found an arsenal. Nearly 400 firearms and thousands of rounds of ammunition were stacked inside. Police have discovered a case of machine guns and handguns, along with $20 million worth of drugs. Detectives say the trailer was allegedly set up as a mobile drug lab. This wasn't a collection for a gun show, it was a resupply shipment for an army. The mix of rifles and ammo suggested it was heading straight to a Mexican cartel, and that is what most people don't realize. We hear about drugs coming in, but we rarely see the rivers of steel flowing out. The discovery exposed the level of planning behind these smuggling runs. The compartments were expert work. It takes time, money, and skill to modify a big rig like that. And using a father and son team with legal status, that is a calculated move to lower the suspicion level. It shows that the cartels are recruiting heavily within the U.S., finding people who can blend in. Federal analysts quickly link the shipment to the broader cartel trade routes. It is a cycle. Drugs go north, cash and guns go south. If you stop the guns, you weaken their ability to protect the drugs. It is all connected. This seizure at Laredo was a massive blow, but it also proved that the cartels are escalating. They are not just sneaking a few pistols in a car trunk anymore. They are moving weapons by the pallet load. Each firearm seized was cataloged and traced. The goal is to find out where they were bought, who sold 400 guns to these guys. It turns out many of these weapons are purchased legally at gun shops across America, then handed off to smugglers. It is a gray market that turns black the moment it hits the border. But while the authorities were celebrating the Laredo bust, the DEA was launching a counterattack of its own. They decided to stop playing defense and go on the offensive against the scary group known as CJNG. This cartel, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, is known for being aggressive and heavily armed. Mexico's most powerful criminal organizations are now expanding their criminal operations into a wide range of violent and high-profit crimes. CJNG and the Gulf Cartel are now directly involved in stealing crude oil from Mexico's state-owned Pemex. In late September, the DEA launched a surge. They hit them hard. In just 5 days, they arrested 670 people across the country. They seized 92 kilograms of fentanyl powder and over 1 million counterfeit pills. Imagine that. They also grabbed over 6,000 kilograms of methamphetamine. The numbers are hard to even comprehend. But again, it was the guns that stood out. Agents recovered 244 firearms during this surge. These are the tools of the trade for CJNG. They use them to enforce control and intimidate anyone who stands in their way. The government has now designated CJNG and other cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. This is a game changer. It allows prosecutors to use counterterrorism laws against them. It opens up new ways to freeze their money and track their leaders. But even with these massive busts on the roads and in the cities, the cartels are always one step ahead. When the surface gets too hot, they don't just stop, they go under. Deep beneath the desert, something massive was waiting to be found. In late June 2025, U.S. authorities near Yuma, Arizona stumbled upon something that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. They found a tunnel. But calling it a tunnel is an insult. This was an underground highway stretching nearly 2,900 feet, that is over half a mile, and plunging 50 feet underground. This passage was a marvel of engineering. Days of excavating revealing a more than 1,300-foot tunnel, a 3-by-4-foot passage, complete with water and ventilation, electrical, even a rail system stretching from the Mexico side to a San Luis neighborhood. Most tunnels are cramped, dirty holes where you have to crawl on your belly. Not this one. This thing had reinforced steel walls. It had a fully functional ventilation system to pump in fresh air. It had high-voltage lighting. And get this, it had a rail system. Yes, a train track. They had built a custom rail system to shuttle goods back and forth efficiently. It was basically a private subway line for the cartel. So, with electric subs and tunnels, are we actually winning this fight, or are we just catching the decoys? What do you think? Drop a comment, like, and subscribe for more.